The Russian invasion of Ukraine is now in its 11th day. So let's take a look at the latest developments where Russia has resumed its offensive in the southeastern city of Mariupol. This comes just hours after Russia had declared a ceasefire to allow the civilians to evacuate. Now, according to information that has come in, the ceasefire did not even last half an hour. And both sides have now blamed each other for letting the ceasefire agreement lapse. Russia has accused the Ukrainian forces in Mariupol of blocking residents from leaving. According to Doctors Without Borders, the humanitarian situation in the city at this point of time is catastrophic. Volodymyr Zelensky has told Ukrainians that their determination and unity will expel the Russian forces. He's also appealed to the people living in the Donbas region to resist, quote-unquote, the liars on Russian television and not to believe the Russian propaganda. His statement has come as the Russian invasion of Ukraine has now entered into its 11th day.
Донбасс. Вспомни, как о тебе говорили. Донбасс никто не ставил на колени. И никому поставить не дано. Эти слова в Донецке, слова в Луганске знает каждый. Их часто повторяли. Раньше. А что сейчас? Донбасс сейчас самое время. Мы обращаемся ко всем людям на временно оккупированных территориях. Ко всем, кто нас слышит. Кому не стерли память пропагандой. Кому не закрыли глаза страхом. Кому не изуродовали душу цинизмом.
The Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmitry Kuleba has urged the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to reach out to the Russian President Vladimir Putin to stop the ongoing invasion. Now, in response to a question that was posted by WION, Dmitry Kuleba said that all countries who enjoy special relations with India can appeal to Putin. The Prime Minister Modi and President Putin have spoken at least twice since Russia invaded into Ukraine. Now, during the first conversation, the Indian Prime Minister appealed to the Russian President to return to the path of diplomacy and negotiations.
All countries who enjoy special relations with India, they can appeal to President Putin, Prime Minister Modi. We call on him to continue reaching out to President Putin and explaining to him that this war is against the interests of all. The only person on the entire planet who is interested in this war is President Putin himself. The people of Russia are not interested in this war either.
And as leaders continue to hold talks, the Russian forces, of course, inch closer to the Ukrainian capital, Kiev, from the north and from the west. Reports say that there has been widespread destruction in the northern town of Chernihiv and dozens of civilians being killed in shelling, in military attacks and also air raids. Meanwhile, the Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, interestingly, has met with Russian President Vladimir Putin at the Kremlin. He also spoke to the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The Bennett's office has issued a statement saying that the meeting with Putin lasted for well over 2.5 hours. Now, this surprise visit by the Israeli Prime Minister came after Israel reportedly offered to mediate between Moscow and Kiev. Now, after this, Bennett, of course, headed to Berlin to hold talks with the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. All right, now to give us more insights in terms of what exactly transpired in this meeting between the Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett and also the Russian President Vladimir Putin, we're joined in by our correspondent Jody Cohen. Now, Jody, this meeting was obviously kept under wraps until virtually its end. What more do you know as to what may have transpired when the two leaders met?
Well, according to a statement by Israel's Prime Minister's office, the flight took off on Saturday morning after the two leaders spoke on Wednesday. Now, the timing is significant because Saturday is the Jewish Sabbath, which is the day of rest. The Prime Minister, as an Orthodox Jew, would only travel on Saturday for a life-saving purpose. And clearly, in the case of Ukraine, he thought this would be. And this suggests that he wants to play a mediating role, which was requested actually by Ukrainian President Zelensky. Naftali and Prime Minister Bennett offered President Putin, and that this offer wasn't rejected. Also significant is the fact that an Israeli diplomatic source has said that the meeting was coordinated in advance with the US, Germany and France in continuous dialogue with Ukraine.
And also, according to the information that has come in, the meeting between Naftali Bennett and Vladimir Putin is said to have lasted for almost about 2.5 hours. Do we know at this point of time anything at all? Has there been any statement that's been officially put out in terms of what the two leaders discussed during the meeting?
So the meeting took place at the Kremlin, and a key focus appears to be on the Ukraine war. According to Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, the two leaders discussed the situation around Ukraine. According to reports, Prime Minister Bennett also spoke about the situation of Israelis and Jewish communities as a result of the conflict. They also discussed the ongoing Iran nuclear talks in Vienna, which Russia is a signatory to. Earlier Saturday, Russia indicated that before backing the Iran deal, it would need guarantees from the US and cited Western sanctions against Russia. So it appears progress in the Iranian nuclear talks and the Ukraine-Russia war could now potentially be linked.
And also, it is very interesting that Naftali Bennett, the Israeli Prime Minister, is trying to mediate between the Russians and the Ukrainians. How is Israel placed between the two nations to in fact be able to successfully mediate and bring in peace between Russia and Ukraine?
So the trip to Moscow came after back-to-back phone calls with Presidents Putin and Zelensky in recent days. Israel has developed strong ties with both countries over the years, and that's helped by the large Jewish communities in both, and also the significant Ukrainian and Russian diasporas in Israel itself. Now, interestingly, Construction and Housing Minister Zev Elkin, he acted as translator during the trip for Bennett. And he has family in Ukraine, which really does demonstrate the close ties between the people in Israel and Ukraine. Of course, there are very close ties as well with the people in Russia. Out of a population of 9 million, 1 million Israelis are of Russian origin. So Israel is careful to maintain relations with both so that it can play a mediation role. On the one hand, Israel has supported Ukraine, for example, by co-sponsoring the UN resolution condemning Russia and even reportedly encouraging others to support it as well. On the other hand, Israel has managed to avoid a rift with Moscow, and that's important because Russia controls Syrian airspace, where Israel needs to defend itself against Iranian-backed militias, which it sees as an existential threat. Now, Foreign Minister Lapid and Prime Minister Bennett appears to be balancing the relations with the two countries. For example, Lapid has been using stronger language. He's talked about a breach of the international order. And Prime Minister Bennett has been talking more about support for the Ukrainian people and not mentioning Russia specifically.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.